The secret everyone ignores that creates reality you have been taught all your life to chase. Chase success, chase love, chase opportunities, chase happiness. You've been conditioned to believe that if you run hard enough, fast enough, long enough, you will finally arrive at the place where your dreams are waiting. But you have never stopped to question why those dreams always seem to stay just out of reach. You have never noticed that every time you chase, you affirm the absence of what you seek. Every pursuit begins with a silent declaration, I do not have it yet. And that belief, that feeling of lack, is what keeps you in motion, running endlessly in circles, never arriving. Stop chasing. Start assuming. The life you desire does not come by pursuit. It comes by possession. You must take it in consciousness before it can ever take form in the world. For the outer world is only the echo of your inner state, the mirror of what you are being in imagination. If you would stop for just a moment and assume that what you desire is already yours, really assume it, really feel it, dwell in it, live from it, you would see the world rearrange itself to confirm that inner assumption. The problem is not that you lack power. The problem is that you misuse it. You use the creative power of imagination to confirm what you do not want. You look at circumstances and say, this is what is real, and then you react to it with fear, with doubt, with longing. But everything you now call real was once imagined. Every condition of your life began as an invisible state within you. If you could stop chasing appearances and begin assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the invisible would soon crystallize into visible form. You see, the chase is a confession of unbelief. You do not chase what you know you already are. You do not chase what you already possess. The rich man does not chase money. He assumes abundance as natural. The loved one does not chase affection. They rest in the knowing that they are loved. The powerful do not chase influence. They live from power. Every chase reveals a state of consciousness that denies its own fulfillment. If you wish to be free, then stop identifying with the man who runs after his desires. Become the one who already is. The only difference between the man who has and the man who wants is state of consciousness. The man who has lives in the assumption of being it. The man who wants lives in the awareness of not being it. And as long as you remain in wanting, life will only reflect wanting back to you. So, how do you stop chasing? You stop by becoming still. You withdraw your attention from the evidence of your senses and turn inward, into imagination. You feel what it would feel like if you were now the person you wish to be. You do not wait for permission from the world. You do not wait for proof. You simply become. Every assumption, when persisted in, hardens into fact. That is the law. You can prove it in the smallest ways. Assume tonight that someone you love has forgiven you. Feel the relief, the joy, the reconciliation. Fall asleep in that feeling and watch how tomorrow the outer world moves to confirm it. Assume that opportunities are opening for you. Feel the excitement, the gratitude, the security of it. Dwell in that state long enough, and life must deliver its likeness. You have been living under the illusion that you must earn what is already yours. You are not here to chase, but to awaken to the fact that you already are the source of all creation. Every condition begins and ends in you. The outer world does not decide your fate. It only reflects it. You are the author and the actor, the dreamer and the dream. When you understand this, you cease begging life to change. You stop pleading with circumstances, with people, with time. You rise in consciousness, assume the state you desire, and the world bows to that assumption. This is not arrogance, it is divine order. The world has no choice but to mirror your inner conviction. You say, but I can't pretend. I can't lie to myself. And yet, you pretend every day. You pretend to be small, to be limited, to be unlucky. You pretend to be the one who tries and fails. If you can assume failure and call it truth, then you can also assume success and call it real. The only difference is what you choose to accept as fact. Every assumption, whether noble or unworthy, is a seed planted in consciousness. Your world is the harvest of what you have been assuming in secret. If you want to change the harvest, you must change the seed. You cannot sow thoughts of lack and reap abundance. You cannot assume rejection and receive love. You cannot dwell in fear and experience peace. You cannot chase and ever find. You must become. To become, you must stop asking, when will it come? And start declaring, it is done. Feel that inner certainty, not as a desperate hope, but as a quiet knowing. This is the great art, living from the end. When you live from the end, you no longer chase, because you already are. You rest, you breathe, you trust. Let the outer world test your faith. It will. When the evidence contradicts your assumption, do not waver. The test comes not to defeat you, but to prove you. Every delay is an invitation to persist. Persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the outer world will yield. You do not fight circumstances, you outgrow them. You do not chase manifestation, you embody it. There is a moment, quiet, invisible, sacred, when the assumption becomes natural. It no longer feels like effort, it feels like truth. That is the moment creation is complete. The world will soon echo it back to you in ways you cannot predict. But until that moment, remain faithful to your inner reality. Chasing keeps you outside the kingdom. Assuming brings you within. Chasing says, one day. Assuming says, now. Chasing hopes. Assuming knows. Chasing looks outward. Assuming feels inward. Chasing creates effort. Assuming creates rest. You were never meant to chase your dreams. You were meant to awaken to them. The dream is not out there. It is within you, waiting for recognition. You bring it to life not by pursuit, but by acceptance. By assuming that what you desire already is, you give it permission to take form. Stop chasing. Close your eyes. Enter the scene in imagination where your desire is already fulfilled. Feel the reality of it. Let it be so real that when you open your eyes, the world feels like the dream. And then walk as though it were true. Speak as though it were true. React to life as though it were true. Because to the one who assumes, the assumed becomes fact. There is nothing to chase, because everything you seek is already present in the unseen. You are not moving toward your desire. Your desire is moving toward you the moment you align with it in consciousness. The only distance between you and your dream is your disbelief. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you collapse that distance. You step into the state where the end is already achieved. And from that state, you no longer beg life to give you what you want. You bless life for already giving it. Stop chasing money, love, recognition, peace. Stop running after shadows. Stop asking when. The moment you assume, it is done. The moment you feel it real, it begins to crystallize. The moment you rest in the end, the world begins its work to rearrange itself in your favor. You are the still point of creation. The moment you stop running, everything begins to move for you. The moment you stop chasing, everything you once pursued begins to seek you. Be still and know that it is already done. When you stop chasing, you reclaim your power. You begin to see that every external pursuit was only a projection of an inner feeling of lack. You were never chasing the thing itself. You were chasing the feeling you believed it would give you. You wanted money not for the paper, but for the feeling of freedom and security. You wanted love not for the person, but for the feeling of being chosen, wanted, complete. You wanted success not for the recognition, but for the feeling of worthiness and power. All along, it was never about the thing. It was about the state. And the great secret is this: you can assume the state without the thing. You can feel the end now. You can live from that inner completeness now. When you do, the thing itself must follow. For the outer is only the shadow of the inner. Most people spend their lives worshiping shadows. They chase reflections instead of becoming the light that casts them. They chase love while radiating loneliness. They chase wealth while assuming lack. They chase peace while nurturing conflict. And so their chase never ends, because shadows cannot be caught. The moment you try to grasp them, they slip away. But when you become the light, when you assume the feeling of what you seek, the shadow follows effortlessly, naturally, automatically. You never chase light. You become it. Think of the times in your life when something you deeply desired came to you easily. It was not because you forced it or chased it. It was because, for a moment, you knew it was yours. You relaxed into that knowing. Perhaps you didn't even notice that you were doing it. You simply felt it real and let it be. That relaxed certainty is the state of assumption. The universe responds to that calm, confident knowing the way a mirror reflects an image. There is no struggle, no effort, no delay once the inner image is clear and unwavering. The delay only comes when you look away, when you doubt, when you start to chase the reflection again. Chasing comes from the belief that fulfillment is separate from you. But fulfillment is never separate. It is a vibration, a consciousness, a state of being. Everything exists as potential within you now. The only reason you do not experience it is because you are identified with the opposite state. You are assuming lack, not abundance, longing, not love, waiting, not having. The moment you change the assumption, the moment you begin to feel and live as though it were already true, the entire field of reality bends to reflect that shift. The change does not come from time, it comes from consciousness. Time only reveals what consciousness has already accepted as true. There is no power outside of your awareness. You are not waiting on destiny, fate, or divine timing. You are waiting on yourself to believe, to assume, to embody. You can make the shift in a single breath. Right now, you could assume that everything is already working in your favor. You could feel the gratitude, the relief, the peace of knowing that what you seek is already secure. And as you remain faithful to that inner feeling, the world around you begins to mirror it back. It must, for the outer has no choice but to obey the inner law. This is why every attempt to chase feels exhausting, because you are fighting your own reflection. You are trying to change the mirror instead of changing the image it reflects. You cannot polish the mirror to change your face. You must change your expression. You cannot struggle with the outer world and expect peace within. You must first assume peace within, and the outer will soften accordingly. Every time you chase, you are reaffirming separation. Every time you assume, you are merging with fulfillment. The difference is subtle but life-changing. The chaser says, I will feel it when it happens. The one who assumes says, I feel it, therefore it happens. The chaser is always waiting for life to prove itself. The one who assumes understands that life only proves what you already feel to be true. This is not pretending or lying to yourself. It is claiming your creative power. Pretending says, I don't really believe this, but I'll act like it. Assumption says, this is who I am now. The universe responds to identity, not effort. You manifest what you are, not what you want. The mind will try to argue. It will say, but I don't see it. Nothing has changed. How can I feel it real when my senses deny it? The answer is simple, because feeling precedes fact. You do not wait for warmth before lighting the fire. You light the fire and warmth follows. In the same way, you do not wait for proof before believing. You believe and proof follows. The outer world is delayed motion. What you feel now, you will see later. So when you assume the end, when you walk as though it were already true, you are setting the cause in motion that will inevitably become effect. If you would only stop chasing appearances, you would begin to feel the rhythm of creation. You would see how effortlessly things unfold when you stop resisting and start allowing. You would begin to trust the unseen currents that move in your favor. you would realize that nothing you truly desire is ever denied you, only delayed by disbelief. Your desire is the voice of your own higher self calling you to remember who you already are. You desire love because you are love. You desire abundance because you are abundance. You desire freedom because you are freedom itself. The chase begins the moment you forget this. The assumption is the remembrance. When you assume, you are not creating something new. You are revealing what has always been. You are tuning yourself to the frequency of what already exists in the unseen. Like a radio, you don't create the music. You simply tune into the station. The music was always there, invisible, waiting for you to align with it. So too are your desires. They already exist in the field of potential, waiting for you to assume the state where they are natural. Once you do, you hear the song of your fulfilled life playing through the speakers of experience. The chase is noisy, assumption is quiet. The chase is frantic, assumption is calm. The chase shouts, please come to me. The assumption whispers, I already am. The chase looks outward for confirmation. The assumption looks inward for certainty. The chase struggles for control. The assumption rests in trust. The chase believes in distance. The assumption believes in union. Every time you feel the urge to chase, pause. Ask yourself, what state am I in? If you feel anxious, desperate, or needy, you are assuming lack. That is why the chase feels endless. Shift the state. Breathe deeply and remember everything is already done. Enter the feeling of completion. Let your body relax as though the goal has already been achieved. Walk, talk, and think from that state. When you do, your actions are inspired, your timing perfect, your words magnetic. People begin to respond to you differently. Opportunities open without effort. Circumstances begin to bend toward your inner conviction. You are never chasing something external. You are only chasing the feeling of being fulfilled. The irony is that you can have that feeling now. You do not need to wait to earn, to strive. You can assume it in this very breath. When you close your eyes and feel the joy of already having, already being, already doing, you ignite the power that moves worlds. And as you persist in that feeling, life arranges itself to mirror your assumption in physical form. Do not confuse assumption with arrogance. Arrogance says, I am better. Assumption says, I am complete. Arrogance seeks validation. Assumption needs none. Arrogance is fragile. Assumption is peaceful. You assume not to prove something to others, but to align yourself with truth. You assume because the truth has always been within you, waiting for you to claim it. When you stop chasing, you enter a stillness that few ever taste. It is the stillness of knowing that everything you could ever want already exists within your awareness. From that stillness, creation flows without effort. You do not push, you allow. You do not demand, you accept. You do not strive, you receive. The whole world becomes cooperative, responsive, alive with possibility. What once felt like resistance turns into flow. What once felt like waiting turns into unfolding. What once felt like struggle turns into harmony. And you realize at last that life was never against you. It was always listening to your assumptions. You will come to notice that the moment you stop chasing, the energy around you shifts. It is as if the air itself becomes lighter, calmer, clearer. You begin to walk differently, not because something external has changed, but because you have changed your center of gravity, from needing to knowing, from wanting to being. You no longer vibrate with the restless energy of pursuit. Instead, you radiate quiet confidence. The world senses this shift. People respond differently. Opportunities appear where there were none. Situations rearrange themselves in ways you could not have planned. What changed? Nothing but your assumption. The outer world, like clay, shapes itself around the mold of your inner state. You stop trying to make things happen and allow them to happen. What was once effort becomes ease, because you are no longer at war with what is. You are no longer declaring lack through your striving. You are declaring completion through your stillness. This is the mystery of all manifestation. The paradox that when you let go of trying, you begin receiving. When you chase something, you are affirming that it is separate from you. But the universe cannot give you what you believe you are separate from. The very act of chasing pushes it away, because chasing says, it is not yet mine. The assumption, however, draws it near, because it says, I already am. The moment you assume, everything that belongs to that assumption is magnetized to you. You do not have to chase it. It begins to orbit around your new identity. Just as planets are held in place by the sun, your assumed state becomes the center of gravity that pulls all corresponding experiences into its orbit. Every feeling, every belief, every assumption carries its own atmosphere. When you assume wealth, you move differently. You speak differently. You think in terms of abundance. You stop noticing lack. Your choices reflect sufficiency. Without trying, you become a match to the experiences of wealth. When you assume love, you no longer seek validation. You no longer beg for affection. You simply radiate warmth and wholeness. People feel drawn to you because you are no longer demanding energy. You are giving energy. When you assume peace, you stop reacting to chaos. The world may still move around you, but it cannot move you. Your stillness becomes your strength. It takes courage to stop chasing, because the world has taught you that only those who strive will achieve. You have been told that waiting, resting, trusting are forms of laziness. But what the world calls laziness, the wise call alignment. Action that flows from fear is wasted energy. Action that flows from assumption is divine motion. When you assume your desire as already fulfilled, your actions arise naturally from inspiration, not desperation. You know exactly what to do and when to do it, because you are no longer guided by fear or impatience. You are guided by inner knowing. You may appear to be doing less, but the results multiply because you are acting from power, not panic. To assume is to dwell in the end mentally and emotionally. You close your eyes and imagine, not as an observer watching a movie, but as a participant living it. You see through your own eyes, you feel the textures, you hear the sounds, you experience the scene as though it were real. Then you open your eyes and carry that feeling with you into waking life. You persist in it until it feels natural, until the assumption becomes so real that you forget you were ever pretending. That is the moment creation is finished. You do not have to force the outer world to comply. It must comply. It cannot resist the vibration of something fully assumed. Everything is consciousness taking form. The outer is only the echo of the inner. When you are chasing something, you are chasing an echo. It can never satisfy you. Only the source within can. That is why when you finally get what you chased, it often feels hollow, fleeting, incomplete. Because the outer result cannot fill an inner emptiness. The moment you assume the feeling itself, without waiting for the form, you fill that space. You become whole. And once you are whole, the form appears not to complete you, but to reflect your completion. The secret is to live as if, not in pretense, but in faith. To walk as though your dream is already a fact, to speak from that state, to make decisions from that reality. You do not wait for the world to give you permission to believe. You give yourself permission. You say to yourself, I am already the one I wish to be. And then you let your actions follow that truth. It may feel strange at first, because you are breaking the old habit of lack. But the more you persist, the more natural it becomes. And when the assumption feels natural, creation is inevitable. You must understand that every desire contains within it the power of its fulfillment. The moment you desire, creation begins. The only reason you don't see it yet is because your attention keeps returning to the opposite. You are oscillating between faith and fear, between assumption and doubt. You must pick one and remain there. The law does not fail. It is your consistency that wavers. Remain loyal to the end. Every time your mind tempts you to chase again, remind yourself that chasing only declares absence. Return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Breathe deeply and say, "It is done." Let the outer world do what it must. It is only catching up to what you have already declared. You cannot serve two masters, the outer world of appearances and the inner world of assumption. You must choose one. If you give power to appearances, you will forever be a slave to circumstance. But if you give power to assumption, circumstance becomes your servant. The moment you assume dominion within, the outer bends to your command. This is not magic, it is law. Everything in existence is consciousness, and consciousness obeys its own nature. You do not fight the law of gravity, you align with it. In the same way, you do not fight for manifestation, you align with your assumption. The one who assumes lives from a place of quiet faith. They do not need to chase, to beg, to prove. They know that what they desire is already established in the unseen and will reveal itself in perfect sequence. They walk through the world as though the end were behind every door, because to them it is. They may appear calm, even indifferent, but their calmness is not apathy. It is mastery. They have discovered that reality responds not to struggle, but to state. Your senses will always tempt you to chase. The mind will whisper, "You must do more, try harder, make it happen." But each time you obey that voice, you step further from your power. When you stop, when you breathe, when you turn within and feel it done, you step back into the creative seat. The world outside begins to shift. The phone call arrives, the door opens, the chance meeting occurs. Not because you forced it, but because you assumed it. You moved first in imagination, and life followed in form. Every assumption calls forth its own evidence. Assume failure, and failure will find you. Assume success, and success becomes inevitable. Assume love, and love appears in countless faces. Assume rejection, and the world mirrors your fear. There is no trick, no ritual, no secret technique beyond this. Everything you have ever experienced began as an assumption, conscious or unconscious. The only question is, will you choose your assumptions deliberately or let the world choose them for you? To stop chasing is not to stop moving. It is to move from knowing instead of needing. It is to move from fullness instead of emptiness. It is to act from joy rather than lack. When you are full inside, the world becomes a playground. You no longer act to get, you act to express. You no longer reach for validation. You overflow with certainty. You become magnetic not because you are trying to attract, but because you are complete. All chasing is born of the belief in incompleteness. Assumption dissolves that belief. Imagine living your days from the feeling that everything you desire is already here. Imagine waking in the morning and feeling that your dreams are already secure. Imagine walking through life without anxiety, without rush, without need. That feeling is not a fantasy. It is your natural state. The only reason it feels distant is because you've practiced the opposite for too long. But you can return to it in an instant. All it takes is a single decision to stop chasing and start assuming. When you live this way, you begin to see the divine simplicity of creation. Nothing is difficult. Nothing is far. Nothing is impossible. Everything responds to the tone of your inner voice. When that tone says, "It is done," the entire universe begins to rearrange itself to match that declaration. Doors open where walls once stood. People appear who were never there before. Synchronicities multiply. Time bends. What you once called miracles become your daily reality. And you understand, deeply and quietly, that you were never chasing the world. The world was always chasing your assumption. When you truly stop chasing, a remarkable freedom enters your life. It is as though a weight you didn't even know you were carrying has been lifted. The constant struggle, the restless desire, the endless striving, all of it fades into the background. you realize that the chase was never about getting what you wanted. It was about proving to yourself that you were lacking. And the very act of chasing only reinforces that lack. To stop is to reverse the flow, to claim what is already yours, to take your rightful place in the unseen and allow the visible world to conform. It is important to understand that assumption is not wishful thinking. It is not pretending. It is not saying, I hope this comes true someday. Assumption is a state of being. It is living in the reality you desire right now in this very moment. It is a full-bodied, all-encompassing state of consciousness. It involves not only thought, but emotion, sensation, and imagination. You do not merely visualize, you embody. You feel the texture, the sound, the smell, the taste, the joy of already having. This is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. The outer world cannot resist the inner reality when it is complete, unwavering, and fully assumed. Chasing, by contrast, is a state of incompleteness. It is a cry of lack, a declaration that something is missing. When you chase, you are constantly looking outward, seeking confirmation from circumstances that will never satisfy you. You run from one opportunity to the next, hoping that finally this one will fill the gap inside. And yet, each new opportunity only mirrors the state of your mind. If you approach it from scarcity, you will meet scarcity. If you approach it from fear, you will encounter fear. The world does not supply fulfillment. It mirrors your inner assumption. That is why the chase never ends. It is always chasing the reflection of what you already feel absent. The principle is simple, yet profound. Whatever you assume, you will receive. If you assume the state of being loved, you attract love. If you assume the state of abundance, wealth manifests. If you assume the state of health, vitality returns. The universe does not discriminate between the imagined and the real. The outer world is always a faithful servant of your inner world. This is why imagination is so sacred. When you use it deliberately, consciously, persistently, you are not dreaming. You are commanding reality. You are planting seeds in the fertile soil of the unseen that will inevitably sprout into form. The mind often protests. But what about evidence? What about reality? That is the voice of the senses, the habitual awareness of the outer world. It clings to appearances, believing they are the measure of truth. But appearances are always secondary. They are effects, not causes. The cause is always consciousness. If you wish to change what you see, you must first change what you feel. Assume the reality you desire and allow the outer to follow. It may take moments, hours, or years, but the unseen is always faithful. Your job is not to enforce it. Your job is to inhabit it fully, unshakably. Persistence is key. Many begin to assume, feel the shift, and then lose faith at the first sign of contradiction. A delay, a denial, an unexpected turn of events, and they fall back into chasing. They forget that the unseen always precedes the seen. Your desire has been placed in motion the moment you assumed it. The outer world is simply catching up. Doubt is the only thing that can sever that flow. To persist is to remain loyal to the end, regardless of appearances. When you do, the world bends in your favor. You are the creator of your reality. You are the axis around which the world moves. The universe is your reflection, and it cannot act independently of your inner state. Every situation, every person, every event responds to your consciousness. Nothing exists outside of your influence. You may not yet see it fully, but this is the truth. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You are the master of your experience. When you stop chasing and start assuming, you step into this mastery. You cease begging life to give you what you want, and you begin to live from the reality of what you already desire. Imagine living each day as if everything you ever wished for were already accomplished. Imagine waking with a sense of completion, carrying it through every interaction, every decision, every thought. Imagine walking into the world with the quiet confidence that you are already fulfilled, that nothing can take away what is inherently yours. That feeling, that state, is your power. When you inhabit it fully, you become magnetic. Life aligns with your vibration. Doors open, opportunities appear, relationships deepen, abundance flows. And all this happens without frantic striving, without desperate chasing, without pleading with circumstances. It happens because you have become the state you desire, and the world has no choice but to conform. Many do not understand the simplicity of this principle. They complicate it with rules, rituals, and formulas. They look for the right method, the right step, the right time. But there is no method outside of assumption. The how is not your concern. Your concern is the inner state. You assume, you persist, and life follows. The universe does not require struggle, it requires alignment. Stop doing, start being. Stop chasing, start assuming. Notice how effortless life becomes when you truly grasp this. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to control people, manipulate events, or force outcomes. You no longer live in anxiety over the future or regret over the past. Your energy is no longer fragmented between desire and doubt. You are focused, calm, and steady. Your inner world is complete, and the outer world reflects that completion. You act with clarity, you choose with confidence, you speak with authority, not because you need to prove anything, but because you are grounded in the certainty of your assumed state. Even in adversity, assumption works. You may face setbacks, challenges, or opposition. The outer may contradict your desire, but this is only temporary. The outer is never the ultimate measure. Persist in the inner reality, and the outer will inevitably adjust. Consider the small things in your daily life. You assume someone is kind to you, and they respond kindly. You assume abundance in your work, and unexpected opportunities arise. You assume health, and the body responds. The principle is consistent assumption calls forth its own evidence. Stop measuring reality by what is visible. Stop validating yourself through circumstances. The world you see is only a shadow of the reality you inhabit. If you want to change the shadow, you must change the substance. You must assume. You must dwell in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. You must live from that state. This is not theoretical, it is practical, effective, and immediate. The moment you assume, the flow begins. The moment you persist, the form begins to appear. Every thought, every feeling, every assumption is a seed. What you nurture, you will harvest. If you chase from lack, you harvest struggle. If you assume from fullness, you harvest abundance. The only difference is in the state you occupy. You do not need more effort, more action, more struggle. You need a shift in consciousness. Once that shift occurs, all else falls into place. The chase is born of separation. Assumption is born of union. When you chase, you are outside your desire, longing for it, hoping for it. When you assume, you are within it, living it, radiating it. The outer world cannot resist the vibration of one fully aligned with their desire. Circumstances, people, opportunities, they all respond automatically. You no longer need to convince, you merely assume, and the world complies. Chasing creates tension, anxiety, and frustration. Assumption creates peace, confidence, and flow. Chasing looks for proof, assumption creates proof. Chasing demands effort. Assumption invites ease. Chasing is born of fear, assumption is born of faith. To live without chasing is to live in harmony with the law of creation, to act from inspiration, to rest in certainty, and to move effortlessly toward the manifestation of all you desire. To stop chasing is to awaken. To assume is to remember who you really are. You are not a beggar for life. You are the creator of it. You are not dependent on circumstance. You are sovereign in consciousness. You are not separate from your desire. You are its source. All that is required is to dwell in that knowing, persist in that state, and allow the outer world to align. When you assume, the universe conspires with you. When you stop chasing, life moves naturally in your favor. The world becomes cooperative, responsive, and abundant. Every step you take becomes guided, every decision inspired, every moment alive with possibility. The outer world is simply catching up to the inner. And in this alignment, the impossible becomes inevitable. The unseen becomes visible. And the life you imagine becomes the life you experience. The power of assumption is always available to you. It is not limited by circumstance, time, or condition. It is the foundation of creation, the secret of manifestation, the truth behind every fulfilled desire. To assume is to declare that you already are, already have, already fulfilled. To stop chasing is to step into that declaration, to live from it, to allow the outer to conform naturally to the inner. And as you do, the world bends in your favor, effortlessly, perfectly, inevitably. You will notice that the chase never truly served you. It kept you distracted, anxious, and divided. Assumption unites. It restores peace, clarity, and power. It allows you to act, speak, and move from a place of fullness rather than lack. It is the difference between struggling against the current and flowing with the river. The river does not force itself. It simply moves naturally along its course. So too does life move for those who assume. The beauty of this principle is that it works in every area of life. Wealth, health, love, peace, opportunity, all are equally responsive to the state of assumption. It does not matter how grand or small the desire. It does not matter how impossible it seems. The unseen is limitless. Your consciousness is infinite. The outer world has no choice but to respond to the state you occupy. To stop chasing and start assuming is to step into that infinite power, to claim your sovereignty, to align with the natural law that governs all creation. You will discover that the moment you assume, obstacles dissolve, delays vanish, contradictions resolve. What seemed distant becomes immediate. What seemed impossible becomes inevitable. The outer world simply mirrors the inner reality. There is no need to manipulate, negotiate, or struggle. You are no longer at the effect of circumstances. You are the cause, and the outer world is the reflection. Every manifestation is the proof of your inner assumption. As you continue in this practice, you will notice a deepening peace. The restlessness that once drove you disappears. The anxiety that once fueled the chase evaporates. The endless longing that once consumed you ceases. You stand fully present, fully aligned, fully knowing that everything you desire is already fulfilled. This is not theory. This is the state from which creation flows effortlessly. This is the power that is always available, waiting for you to claim it. You will see that your life is no longer a struggle. You are no longer a seeker running from one opportunity to the next. You are a being fully at home in your own assumption. You move through the world with confidence, clarity, and inspiration. Circumstances bend naturally to your state. People respond, doors open, opportunities arise, and life flows as a reflection of your inner reality. The chase has ended. The assumption has begun. Every desire you have ever held is already present in the unseen. The only question is whether you will assume it or continue to chase it. To assume is to step into your power. To assume is to know, deeply and unwaveringly, that what you desire is already yours. To assume is to declare completion. To assume is to stop running and begin receiving. The moment you persist in the assumption, the outer world aligns. What once seemed distant is suddenly close. What once seemed impossible is suddenly inevitable. What once required effort now requires only attention, focus, and faith. You are no longer chasing, you are being. You are no longer longing, you are fulfilled. You are no longer waiting, you are already there. The principle is eternal, unchanging, and infallible. Whatever you assume is true, you will see manifested. To stop chasing is to align with this principle. To assume is to step into the flow of life, to claim your creative power, to live as the fulfilled being you already are. The chase may have driven you for years, decades even, but it ends the moment you assume. Everything else becomes a reflection, a confirmation, a natural consequence of the state you occupy. Your imagination is the tool, your assumption is the key, and your persistence is the power that brings it all into form. The world outside will always mirror your inner state, faithfully and inevitably. Stop chasing, not because it is impossible to attain what you seek, but because chasing itself is proof that you are misaligned. Start assuming, because assuming is the language of creation, the doorway to manifestation, the reality of fulfillment that begins within and unfolds without. Every day, every moment is an invitation to practice assumption. The smallest desire can be assumed as if it is already accomplished. The largest, most impossible dream can be assumed as if it is already real. The outer world will respond in perfect accordance with your inner reality. You do not need to manipulate, struggle, or force. You only need to assume, persist, and allow the outer to reflect the state you have claimed. Chasing is temporary. Assumption is eternal. Chasing consumes energy and breeds frustration. Assumption restores power and breeds fulfillment. Chasing looks outward. Assumption looks inward. Chasing begs for confirmation. Assumption requires none. Chasing is born of fear. Assumption is born of faith. Chasing is always delayed. Assumption brings immediacy. Stop chasing. Stop trying to force the world to give you what you already have. Close your eyes. Enter the scene in your mind where your desire is fulfilled. Feel it as real. Dwell in it until it feels natural, inevitable, and complete. Persist in this feeling regardless of appearances. Walk, act, and speak from this state. The world will follow. It cannot do otherwise. Your assumption will bring form. Your being will magnetize circumstance. Your life will flow effortlessly. Everything begins and ends in consciousness. The outer world is only a reflection of the inner. To chase is to deny this truth. To assume is to embrace it. The law is consistent, impartial, and absolute. When you stop chasing and begin assuming, you step into the natural order, the divine flow, the effortless creation of reality. All that you desire, all that you imagine, all that you are capable of becoming is already present. The only step remaining is to assume it fully, unshakably, persistently, until the outer world catches up to the inner. This is the power, the freedom, the certainty, and the joy of living in assumption. And so, the truth becomes clear that chase was never the path to fulfillment. It is the assumption, the inner knowing, the full-bodied belief, the unwavering feeling of already having that moves mountains and bends reality to your will. Stop exhausting yourself in endless pursuit. Stop giving power to lack and longing. Step into the state where your desire is already accomplished. Persist in it, dwell in it, breathe it, and live from it. The universe does not resist what is assumed, it obeys it. Your outer world is simply a reflection of your inner reality. Everything you have ever wanted is not waiting somewhere. Hold there. It is waiting for you to claim it within. To assume is to awaken to your creative sovereignty. To assume is to stop begging and start receiving. To assume is to know that the life you imagine is not a dream. It is your present, your natural state, your inevitable reality. From this moment forward, let chasing end and assumption begin. Let faith replace striving, stillness replace effort, and certainty replace doubt. Claim your desires as already fulfilled. Walk, speak, and act from that state. Persist in it, trust it, embody it, and watch as the world rearranges itself effortlessly, naturally, and inevitably to match your inner reality. The power has always been within you. The only question is whether you will stop chasing shadows and begin assuming the reality that is already yours. The choice is yours. Choose wisely, assume fully, live boldly, and let the world respond to the state of your consciousness. Your reality waits not at the end of a chase, but in the fullness of the assumption you claim today.